Jayden Daniels owes Lamar Jackson a thank you card come May. As the draft season is fast approaching, or we're in it right now. After the Super Bowl, we're in draft season. And it got me thinking just how far both the football world and the quarterback world have come when it comes to just evaluating quarterbacks. 6-7 years ago, Lamar Jackson, who was the most electrifying player in all of football, both college and NFL, had a Heisman Trophy, had the stats, had the film, had everything behind him, found a way to slip to the end of the first round. Yet now we're at a point where Jayden Daniels, who has very similar numbers, finds himself as it feels like a consensus top 5 pick nowadays. Maybe consensus might be a stretch. There's teams going both ways, but a guy that's consensus top half of the first round. That's coming a long ways, and I'm going to unpack it. I'm not saying Jayden has the same exact skill set as Lamar, but I am saying they have comparable stats, and I am saying they have comparable measurables. The thin frame, that was a concern with Lamar Jackson. Some of you got to get stronger, got to get more accurate, those types of things. Those were concerns that Lamar had to deal with, and Jayden's got similar concerns. The accuracy is not as much of a thing for Jayden as me, but the concerns around, he's got to protect himself as a runner. Well, that was a concern for Lamar, and it's maybe a reason why he dropped towards the end of the first round. But now we're to a point in the game of football where that concern, yes, it's a factor. Yes, it's something you have to evaluate, but it's not deterring teams away from getting the dual threat quarterback. So let's explore that a little bit. Why would Lamar Jackson slide to 32 6-7 years ago? And there's no way. We all know it. There is no way Lamar Jackson in this year's draft coming out of college would slide outside the top 10. There's no way. So let's explore that path in the quarterback position and how we got here, and who does Jayden Daniels need to write some thank you cards to. This whole thing starts with Mike Vick. When Mike Vick started in the NFL, Jim Mora was his head coach, and Jim Mora tried to fit him into that pro-style offense because that's what everyone ran. You're coming off the back of the West Coast offense. That is NFL football. This is how we do it. I don't care how athletic you are, you're fitting into this system. And Mike Vick was talented enough to get away with that because he could operate from the pocket, and we saw that throughout his career. But the West Coast offense, it was built on short ball control passes. It was built all on rhythm and timing. It was built around a quarterback who knew where to go with the ball, who could play point guard. And it was not built around a lot of the traits that Mike Vick had. The elite athleticism, the mind-blowing arm strength. Yes, that certainly helped back then, but it was way more timing oriented. The arm strength wasn't as significant of a factor. If you could run all over the field at the quarterback position, didn't really matter because it's not even in the offensive playbook. Zone read literally was not a thing, or probably was a thing with Chip Kelly way up in New Hampshire at that point. But in NFL football, no, that's rinky-dink football. We're not doing that. The fact that he could improvise, of course, that's why he went as high as he did. Like that's always going to be attractive at the quarterback position, moving within the pocket. And then there was concerns early on with Mike Vick, the longer release, right? Where you got so locked into what the prototype quarterback should be, you sometimes lost track of the fact that, can you ball or can you not? And then when you progress in Mike Vick's career, he got with Andy Reid. And we all know that there was a lapse there that Mike Vick, wasn't playing football. And at the age of 30, in 2010, he was able to go 62% completion percentage, 151 yards a game. This is the stat that sticks out the most. 21 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions in 12 games. Was able to resurrect his career that 1 year in Philly. It's worth noting, though, his performance did decline the next 2 years in Andy Reid's offense. But Mike Vick proved some things. He proved a lot to a large quantity of people. He proved that it wasn't about fitting the player into the system, but it was about fitting the system into the player. And that started to change the narrative around what a quarterback should be. It's not, hey, you got to be able to do this or you can't play at all. No, it's, hey, coach, it's on you to put the plays in the playbook that guys are going to have success. The next thing, Mike Vick showed that a high volume of carries for quarterbacks wasn't a death sentence. It wasn't a negative. You could put that weight on a quarterback and still have him both survive a season, but more importantly, absolutely change a game. That was the starting point. He didn't convince everyone, as we're going to get into. That was still the narrative for the next decade. But Mike Vick started to crack the door open. And then even more bigger picture, Mike Vick showed and got a lot of people excited that, hey, this dual threat quarterback thing, this is pretty fun. We can do some stuff with this dual threat quarterback. It gets all the offensive coordinators, all the guys like me, younger dudes in their 20s with a whiteboard, all the creative juices starting to flow. Maybe it's because of the dang Madden controller. People playing Madden like this is as this guy's an absolute cheat code. How do we get more Mike Vicks in the game? Mike Vick started this narrative, or I guess reverting the narratives that had been started at the quarterback position, but it wasn't done yet. It would still take guys to follow to completely break it down. We have, in the years to come, you have Cam Newton, you got Colin Kaepernick, you have Robert Griffin III, you have Tim Tebow, and I don't want to do those other guys a disservice. Let's go back even before Mike Vick. Honorable mentions: Randall Cunningham, Dante Culpepper, Steve McNair, Donovan McNabb, Vince Young, all guys that slowly chipped away at this narrative. And that last batch of guys, they fell into the, hey, you got to be in the West Coast system. The Cam Newtons, the Kaepernicks, the RG3s, the Tim Tebows, that's the wave of, all right, we're putting our system around these quarterbacks. This guy is too good of a football player. Don't even say quarterback. This dude's too good of a football player. We got to build our system around this dude rather than the other way around. And this part, as I really started to break this down, the guy that really was the turning point, and this almost like surprised me as I fully flushed out this thought, was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was the guy where he had success early on in his career. And you're sitting there like, wait a sec. This dude can do everything from a mobility perspective, and you get the passing stuff. Before that, it was kind of a trade-off. It was like, hey, you either get the mobility stuff or you get the passing stuff. With Russell Wilson, it got to the point of like, wait, no, we can have our cake and eat it too. We can do both things. And then also, you got to a point with the measurables with Russell Wilson where you're sitting there saying, yo, is this whole 6'5" pocket passer thing, like, is that actually what we need to have? Like, why can't Russell Wilson play at a high, like, when we're evaluating quarterbacks, is 6'5", you just have to be that? No, the game's much more wide open. The game gets more athletic, so you need an athlete back there, and Russell Wilson's height is not as big of a concern because height is just that versus the strength that he brings to the table, the mobility, the ability to navigate in the pocket, absolute nightmare for defensive coordinators on third down. That's what Russell Wilson brought to the table. And as a Seattle Seahawks fan, the narrative that Russell Wilson changed as well is the concern around, can mobile quarterbacks protect themselves? Russell Wilson did a phenomenal job at protecting himself. He would run and he'd get down. He'd run, he'd get out of bounds. It wasn't necessarily the run, juke a bunch of guys out and then get hit, which is what happened with an RG3, which is what happened with a Cam Newton, which is what happened to a degree with Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick wasn't taking hits all the time, but much more design runs versus Russell Wilson was, hey, we can call our whole passing attack, and then when it's open, Russell can run and protect himself. That's the narrative that Russell Wilson changed the most, in my opinion. In that time frame with Russell Wilson, though, we'd be doing this video a disservice if we did not acknowledge the fact that the quarterback rule changes are a big factor. The more protections for the quarterback, which, hey, I'm sure Mike Vick looks at the game nowadays saying, hey, if I could get all that protection, and if that defender is just slowing up just a tad, maybe I'm able to be even more explosive. And with that last wave of rule changes that took place to protect the quarterback, of the top 10 single season QB rushing attempts list, 8 have come since 2017. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a factor of a lot of these factors, but the rules of protecting quarterbacks are certainly significant. And then the next wave of quarterbacks after Russell, they continued to change the narrative around the quarterback position. A lot of these guys weren't as dynamic as the bunch I just listed out, but they weren't part of the prototype of what the quarterback was supposed to be when Mike Vick was playing. We're talking guys like Baker Mayfield, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Jalen Hurts, guys like Josh Allen. Josh Allen had best of both worlds, right? Huge quarterback, has that prototype size, but his style, at least coming into the game, was different. And then that's where we get to Lamar Jackson. And he was drafted in a time where Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and Josh Rosen went ahead of him. There is no way in today's era Josh Rosen goes ahead of Lamar Jackson. There's just no way. And Lamar really finalized the mindset that, hey, not only can you win with a dual threat quarterback, but nowadays you have to have an element of mobility to be considered a top-end guy. Even a guy like Joe Burrow, my long-lost brother, he has that pocket mobility. I always say from a personal standpoint, I was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. I don't think I would have been a 5-star rated quarterback in today's college football world because I wasn't mobile enough. I wouldn't be viewed as, again, that prototype quarterback that's able to stand tall under the pocket. No, you have to have that next level mobility component, which that is the final piece that Lamar broke through, which is why Jayden Daniels is able to be at a point that he's at right now where he is considered a top 5 NFL quarterback. And again, let me be very clear that I don't think Jayden Daniels is as electrifying of a prospect as Lamar Jackson. Lamar is next level in terms of his ability to run, but Jayden has some of those components. When you look at a guy like Lamar, I view it as he's a dynamic athlete no matter what human being you put on the field with him. Jayden Daniels, on the other hand, he has elite athleticism, and he will make guys without elite athleticism look silly. But my biggest thing that I would look for if I'm a GM is, will that athleticism be a difference-making factor when there's other elite athletes around him on the football field like there will be in the National Football League? To say it a different way, is he just taking advantage of his athleticism at a level of play in college football where not every athlete is overly dynamic? And then when he gets to the NFL where defensive ends are running 4.5s and linebackers are running 4.5s as well, and they're able to run with him, and does that elite athleticism get neutralized? That hasn't been the case for Lamar. Obviously, it's not as easy to juke guys out in the NFL as there is in college, but Lamar's athleticism is a factor against anyone he plays, period. As a GM, you got to assess if that same thing applies for Jayden Daniels. College stat-wise, I won't run through them all, but it's very comparable. Yards per game, total yards from both a run and pass standpoint, the passing touchdowns. Jayden Daniels is actually even better in his Heisman campaign, but Lamar's got more rushing touchdowns. Hence why this isn't a controversial take, why I think he's more dynamic on the ground. When we look at differences in their draft evaluations from an arm strength standpoint, I would say Lamar was, huge arm, ability to have that big time velocity, and Jayden is, he's got a good arm, right? That's not a concern, but it's not that huge arm. Accuracy-wise, there was concerns around Lamar's mechanics a little bit and some of the accuracy concerns, this footwork and whatnot. And with Jayden, it's, a very polished passer, especially with the downfield accuracy. And I just mentioned it. Footwork-wise, Jayden's a bit more polished. Lamar was more of an athlete mode. I would say you could even go, poor footwork, which then, that leads to the inaccuracy that sometimes he brings to the table. The similarities with the draft, the running concerns, right? Are they able to protect themselves with how mobile they are given the frame they have? The athleticism, we've talked about it, and the levels that come with that. And then the pocket presence. Lamar was much more of a, he utilizes his athleticism in the pocket and can feel things really well without taking his eyes down. Jayden, I would say, is very similar. And so that gives you a rundown of how we got here, which maybe that's just me. Drop a comment down below if you find that interesting, of that trajectory really over the past 20 years. Right? That's the draft that Mike Vick went in, and here we are, 20 years to really transform how we view the quarterback position, which factors that we put the utmost importance in. And then, just 6 years ago, the question was, can you really build a franchise around a guy who's mobile? To now the question is, how can you not? And check this out. Lamar's signing bonus was $4.9 million in 2018. Jayden, if he goes to the Patriots like many expect, his signing bonus is going to be $23 million. That's a 6-year gap. That's it. 6 years. I've been done playing football for 6 years. That gap is worth $18 million. Jayden Daniels, you better get out some thank you cards and start writing to all these dudes I just listed.